BYU's atmosphere at LaVell Edwards Stadium is hands down the best in the Big 12. And you don't just need to take my word for it. The national media has noticed now too. And so I've got national media backing for me on this right now. I obviously was in Provo for the Holy War over the weekend, and I haven't fully downloaded all my thoughts on that experience with you guys. My second trip to Provo for a game, and I feel very spoiled here in that I've gotten to see two great atmospheres because it was the K-State game that BYU won 38-9 last year, and then obviously a 24-21 win over Utah this year. Now, some context from my opinion before I give you the opinion of the Athletics' entire staff and then others in the national media who weighed in this week. But I covered K-State full-time for 10 years, and so I went to every single road football game. I've been on the sideline at every one of those stadiums because much of that time I was shooting video for our station website. When I was doing that, I would do pregame radio and then shoot video on the sideline. So I have gotten, I feel like, a really good taste of not only the Big 12 stadiums that are in the league now, but I've been to Oklahoma and Texas multiple times. So I know what a good college football atmosphere looks like and feels like. And I think what I have seen and experienced at LaVell Edwards ranks right up there at the top of the best of what I've experienced. And even if you wanted to push back and say, well, you were covering K-State, were those always the best atmospheres? I mean, night game in 2012, K-State, Oklahoma, a couple of ranked teams, a game that K-State won, but a close one that went down to the wire. That's going to elicit a pretty good atmosphere out of the folks in Norman. Oklahoma State. I saw K-State, Oklahoma State in 2011. That had Kirk Herbstreit and Brent Musburger in the house on the call. That was one of the absolute biggest games of the week. Went right down to the final drive. Incredible atmosphere. K-State at West Virginia in 2012. Massive matchup with a couple ranked teams right when K-State was on the come up. Geno Smith was a huge thing. And that wound up not being a close game, but it was an elite atmosphere until it got out of hand. Like, I have seen some great college football atmospheres. I put what I've experienced in Provo the last 2 years up with any of them. And the interesting observation I have was that the Utah game, actually, it felt like it was on a similar plane to what I got with the K-State game, meaning just that I feel like the atmosphere there has to be very consistent. I know Utah is going to be generally a little extra charged from just K-State rolling in there, even though K-State was a good team and that was a game that BYU fans were hungry to win. But I thought both atmospheres were pretty close to equal, and both had this moment, like the moments that I will remember from each of those games. I would even, it's crazy. The Bear Bachmeier touchdown run was awesome. Like, epic play, legendary play. That'll be on the Jumbotron forever at LaVell Edwards. And the crowd pop there was awesome, especially because you got like this escalating crowd noise where it's like, man, the crowd gets fired up at first when he kind of covers the initial 5 yards or so. Then it looks like, okay, he's got the first down, elevates even more. And then when he gets pushed into the end zone, like, you get full peak crescendo. It was awesome. But I feel like you got that times 5 with the Parker Kingston punt return touchdown against K-State. And that was where, like, I literally felt like the stadium was shaking when I experienced that. And I wasn't even in the press box at that point. I was out, like, in the stands, which was probably for the better as far as experiencing it goes. So incredible stuff from the atmosphere. And what makes this so good, the obvious, huge moments. The team has been good, but the scenery with the mountains in the backdrop. I mean, I'm a sucker for it in general, but anybody, it's when you sit there and you look at it across the way, especially like the Utah game was started when it was light enough you could still see the mountains, and then like it gets dark and you blend into the night game. It just perfect. And when you're seeing the mountains, it's hard not to have it just take your breath away. But the in-game atmosphere is as good as anything. And that's one thing I want to emphasize here about what BYU does really well. The energy, they just keep the energy up so well throughout the game. It's everybody who's in charge of in-game atmosphere, and it's having the resources to make it really good because that stuff is not cheap. And Cosmo being on top of the Jumbotron with the fire dancers in the middle of the third quarter, and then like the BYU sideline, like the team participating in all that, that is so unique and so damn cool. You're not going to see that anywhere else. You got the drone show. the music, like the students shifting back and forth to power. It's a lot like what Texas A&M does, except instead of lame old Aggie war hymn, it's power, right? Sick song to be doing that with. It's just a lot about the in-game atmosphere where you feel like the energy never dips. And that's something I would say, like, if you're a BYU fan, do not take that for granted, because that is not the case everywhere else. It is not the case everywhere else that the energy stays up like that, man. It's an awesome atmosphere. So now, of course, there's my opinion. What about the national folks? Look, RG3, who did the game, he was tweeting about how breathtaking the backdrop was. Dave Portnoy had all sorts of good things to say about it. There were other Barstool personalities I saw loving up the atmosphere that seemed like genuinely surprised by how great it was during the game. But the Athletic doubled down on all this. So the Athletic did like a poll of its staff to rank stadiums, the top 25 in college football, and BYU was the highest in the Big 12. They check in at number 17 nationally, and it was the number one stadium in the Big 12. It was ahead of Jordan-Hare at Auburn, right? One of the SEC's best atmospheres. It was ahead of the LA Coliseum. It was ahead of Doak Campbell at Florida State. It was ahead of Lane Stadium, Virginia Tech, Inner Sandman, all that stuff that you hear about. BYU ranked higher than that. And here is what the Athletic said about it. Quote, one of college football's most scenic stadiums can thank its position at the foot of the Wasatch Mountain Range and its prime view of the 11,000-footer. On a clear winter night, the sunset reflects rosy, warm light on the snow caps and across the 62,000 seats, the Big 12's biggest by capacity. Combine that with wholesome tailgates and fans cheering the Cougars on while eating 15-inch maple donut bars, and you've got a truly one-of-a-kind experience. So that's what the Athletic says about the atmosphere at LaVell Edwards in Provo. If you are curious, the other two Big 12 atmospheres that made it, Utah, which totally makes sense, right? Rice Eccles, all the success that they've had. You're getting mountains there as well. But the other one was Colorado. And I'm like, look, Colorado is scenic. Don't get me wrong. It's a little bit old. And to me, that feels a little hyper. Like the Dion era, the atmosphere I know has been a lot better. And I know K-State folks that covered the game last year there that also covered the BYU K-State game, and they said like both atmospheres were great. And so I'm not trying to take anything away from Colorado, but that did mildly surprise me because before that it was totally dead. Now I know the team wasn't very good, but I thought, hey, like Oklahoma State has been consistently very good. And one of the best atmospheres that I experienced consistently when I was traveling on the road was Oklahoma State. I would probably flip-flop that and get them in there and not have Colorado there. But I digress. I'm not going to cry too hard over, scenic mountain backdrop being included in there because I would love to experience that any day of the week. Anyway, much love, much respect to BYU and LaVell Edwards. That is not, I know some out there will just accuse me and whoever else says it of just sucking up more or less to BYU and BYU fans with that. I'm telling you, man, that is legitimate. It is a legitimately great atmosphere. You should go experience it. If your team is playing there, you should 100% find a way to go do it and take it in for yourself. And then if you disagree, that's what, if you're going to comment that this is just sucking up, this is biased, whatever you want to say, go there yourself, experience it yourself, and then come back to the comments. Okay. So I don't want to see the comments if you haven't actually been there yourself. Anyway,